Thank you for joining me for another Quick Hits conversation. I'm Dr. Robyn. With me today, I have Helena Bouchez, Chandima Dutton, and Chris Martin. The question I want to ask, how do you perform at your peak for a sprint, like a short push to get something done, without it becoming normalized and expected? Chris, can you kick us off?
So I think I'd like to answer in two parts. Unfortunately, a lot of times these things come up unexpectedly, but sometimes I think that the idea of being kind of go slow to go fast, and what I kind of take that to mean is, you don't want to be frantic. And part of not becoming frantic is self-care. And in my past life in the television business, I don't think I was good enough. I was too young to kind of quite appreciate that I needed to take care of myself. But now I'm a little older, a little bit wiser. And so when I find myself in a sprint, what I have to really coach myself a little bit to do is to kind of slow down and take some time to kind of collect myself, maybe take a little walk outside, 15 minutes, go, take a shower, whatever I need to do to kind of like reset my brain. It just allows me to work longer and more effectively and efficiently in the long run.
I like that. So
now,
take care of yourself during the sprint. Okay.
Yeah, totally. And then in terms of how to approach it so it doesn't become normalized, if it's something that you do for a client where they all of a sudden expect you to, stop on a dime and turn something around, what I usually do is when that happens, I will say, okay, we'll get it done for you. And then maybe sometimes after, when the crisis is over and we've crossed the finish line, I'll just have a very friendly, open conversation with them and say, look, we're so glad we were able to get you there. And, everyone's a success and we're all winners and everything. But I want to make sure that you understand that that kind of thing requires extra personnel, extra time, extra expense. And, when that comes up again, we're happy to, get the ball into the end zone for you. But, I do have to charge a little extra for that kind of service. And at least that way they know it's on the table. And I won't necessarily charge them the first time for what you might call rush service. But the next time this happens, it's going to cost a bit extra to make miracles happen.
Nice. Ladies, what do you think?
I definitely agree with the preparation. It's almost like, okay, I'm going to go into this very focused state and you have to prepare for that. And for me, I have to take care of the other things that would distract me in doing that. But I also listen to my body. So if, I'm up burning the midnight oil, I'm going to think, well, okay, I'm really tired. I need to stop. And I need to start again when I'm fresh, because otherwise you're just creating more problems for yourself. So I think that's what I'm doing when I'm doing it. And in terms of expectations, if you're doing it for a client, depending how important the client and the work is to you, you kind of push through it. But there's a conversation to be had after, which is, so, how did that go? How are we going to stop this happening again? What we're going to do. So this kind of rush doesn't happen again, because it's presumably not good for the client either.
Right.
So really being on top of that.
Sprints are kind of a way of life in my business, in the book business, because there's always the last month where I'm, in a hotel for 2 weekends from Thursday to Sunday, just, getting the book over the finish line. So this is sort of part of life for me. But I think what I've learned from my experiences is that, that can be a little bit addictive too, to know that you can pull it off. Like you feel like a rock star and, get a lot of accolades or whatever, even though you're killing yourself. And I think what I've learned is do I have to actually be doing everything that's involved in this emergency? Right. So what can I hand off? How, do I really need to be the one that bears the brunt of this catastrophe or whatever? So that's one thing. And then again, communication upfront about, sometimes you don't know if the client is that way, but the communication is, we've allocated a bunch of resources for you to make sure that we can do stuff on a timely basis. But what the pattern that I've noticed is that there's a lot of last minute stuff going on. And so let's have a conversation about what's required to be able to respond properly in a way that's going to work for both of us to this state of being that seems to be, what your business is. So yeah, I think that's the communication part is really, really important, and charging appropriately. People should have to pay if they're blowing up your life. I really
Yeah.
believe that, you know.
I agree. I have a client who works in corporate, and she had a project 90 days where she was working 90, 100 hours a week, just absolute crazy hours. And at the end of the project, her boss seemed shocked that she wanted to go back to working 40 or 50. Like, he really thought she was going to, he's like, but you can do it. Why wouldn't you do 70? And she's like, just because I can doesn't mean I want my life to run that way. And now they're in this kind of uncomfortable space where he expects her to basically do 2.5 jobs. And she's like, I want to do one job and raise my daughter. And that's the challenge she's having. And I'm wondering, from listening to the three of you, if it has to be a situation where even in a sprint, you don't give them that much, because then it does become expected and you can't back from it.
Well, that situation, which I can totally understand, you hear about attorneys, for example, who, put in crazy hours and they have to get things done. But, I think getting in front of it, and, I don't mean to coach your client, but my advice, if they were to ask me, is to say, look, this is a lesson in professional maturity. You just need to have that conversation and say, look, if when there's a crisis, I want to be your go-to. I want to be the person you call. But, day in and day out, I cannot be working, 90 hours a week. It's not sustainable. I have a daughter. The other thing is that work-life balance piece. I'm an older dad. I have two older kids. One's about to go into college, but I also have a second grader. And it's really important to me that I be present for him, that I'm here when he gets home from school, that I, am with him before bed, like things like that are just really important to me. And I have to draw a line in the sand. I have to just say, look, these are the things that are important to me, and they're really important to me. And, am I so inflexible that I can't, if something happens and I need to, really sprint and work 24 hours in a row, I'm your guy. But I can't do that every day.
That sounds like a cultural issue too. I mean, there's a lot of bullying going on in the workplace right now. And, the person who's doing the bullying is getting a lot of approvals and accolades from the people that are directing them for, squeezing the last drop of blood out of whoever their staff is. And so, I mean, we've talked about this before. Sometimes you just have to look at it, and if it walks like a duck and quacks like a duck, it's got to be a duck. And so she's got to look at it and say, is this cultural thing, or is this person so entrenched in the organization that there's no way, because he's not changing. Do you know what I mean? She's just going to get abused. So, that's a new job in my opinion.
Well, the other thing also is make them pay.
And if you work a salary job in corporate America, you don't have that choice. You don't have that option. Her choice is either let stuff not happen or do it. Chandima, what are your thoughts? You're in a different work culture there. What are your thoughts on this?
Well, we have that kind of work culture, and I have had bosses like that. So yeah, it's there are companies like that. I think personally, you don't want to get to the point where you break, and
yeah, that's where she is.
And then you're off. You have to take time off from work, and that's not good for anyone, really. So, if you can have that conversation about, this is unreasonable, this is the normal kind of job that I can do, this is what my actual role description is. If you can, there's always, walking away, because they try and replace you. They find that they have to bring 3 people in to replace the work that you've done. Sometimes it's hard, and I appreciate not everyone can walk away from a job. But trying to find those angles where they appreciate the value you're bringing, and just working 3 times as hard doesn't mean that you create 3 times the value.
Yeah,
because
I think
you're tired.
It's so hard to work at, to be a good employee or be a good worker and do the work and be amazing without burning yourself out, and drawing that line and not ending up in your boss's office in tears because it's been 6 months and you've been working ridiculous hours. And if you don't do it, the work doesn't get done. And I think this is an ongoing problem, is how do you perform at being a really great, amazing worker and not create the expectation that you can work 90 hours a week all of the time. So that is our 10 minutes. Thank you so much for having this conversation with me. I wish there was an easy answer. I look forward to talking to each of you again really soon.
Thank you.